This video is brought to you by TS4U IT Engineering Bootcamp.
Whenever you hear the backend, it is one of the simple things you will be the misunderstanding with the people who doesn't have the in-depth IT experience or the knowledge. They will tell you different way. Okay, the way the web works, right? When you type the schoolsub.com, actually you are requesting schoolsub on your internet. On your internet means your internet provider. Simple. Your internet provider actually requesting to us. Okay, requesting us means our endpoint, like the sign-in endpoint, and the front-end developer actually consume that, and then it is come to our web server. Web server is the media between the front end and the back end. For now, you just learn this. And then, of course, there is a missing part. Look at this. When you get the Google, the Google, the screenshot, that's what happened. This is the one I did not ask them to change it to show you. Okay. So this is called the Google misguided screenshot. Okay. It's actually called the misguided screenshot. This is not the true screenshot, but I kept it for you. Basically, the way it works, your API stay in the backend. Okay, your web server connected with your backend, and your backend is connected with the database. Remember, your front end is connected with the web server. Your backend also connected with the web server. Your backend connect with the database. That's exactly how it works. Where the API is on your backend. What is the front end is? Front end has three things. Front end has the HTML, front end has the CSS, front end has the JavaScript or any other programming language, and also front end consume. Consume means the implement backend API. So once the user does all the action, actually it goes to the web server, and the web server to the backend server, and backend server to the backend tells the database either retrieve the data or just add the new data. Is based on the user behavior. So now you say, well, I understand why you are adding the web server in between. Well, it is important because company never wants a user never ever know the backend server details. Never, because backend is where all the business logic is written. It's the firewall protected, means the hacker cannot hack it. If a hacker hacks it, hacker hack the web server. Web server is the application that actually the media is a broker, right, between the front end and the backend server. And it is the one of the core component for the cloud ops engineer. They do all of this. You see this picture? Actually, this is done by the DevOps engineer or AWS cloud ops engineer or the system engineer. They actually prepare all of this. Okay, they design the database, they install them, they configure the web server, they configure the front end, they configure the back end, they actually configure the front end and back end through the web server. They need to make sure everything works. That's the web. Then they tell the QA, okay, here is the staging environment URL. Okay, so you can connect with this the screenshot misguided. It's a Google screenshot, okay? It's fake. All right. I kept it so you understand. And if you go to the Google, learn from the Google, you'll not learn, basically. Okay. This is Google, somebody did it for the marketing. And we kept it for all of you, so you know this. Okay. But so now let's come to the backend. Backend is a name or component name, but basically every user story when the data is coming or evaluating or data is giving, we need to write a simple code we call the logic. And after the logic, we do not actually share the code with anybody else. We don't want to share the code with anybody else. Actually, simply share a simple URL, simple endpoint, but simple point. Means once somebody hit this point, actually the entire logic run. One more time. We do not want to expose companies' intellectual property, right? Guess what? If you build the COVID, like the medicine, right? Your team work day and night. It is becoming a billions of dollar business, right? And you never ever want somebody knows the code of the COVID logic. You never want, never ever. But you want to sell the recipe, right? You don't want to sell the ingredients. You want to sell the recipe. Means you want somebody can use it so you can make money, right? And to make money or to give the access to yourself or the other people, we call that you are exposing the total logic to a single endpoint. And that's endpoint become your, we call the API endpoint. We call the this user story endpoint. We call the like then the endpoint, the simple endpoint. But endpoint become an URL based on environment. What does it mean? If this code is deployed for the development, it becomes the development URL. If the same code is deployed means install, configure, and pretty much ready for the user to use. When you deploy, the DevOps engineer deploy in the staging environment, that becomes the staging URL. You'll understand this. When it is deployed on the production, that becomes the production URL. So now listen carefully. www.schoolshub.ai. This is actually it's an example. It's like the one part. But when you hit take the slash sign in, basically sign in is the endpoint. So in this mechanism, there is like the many things is there. I am not going the details because details will take forever. But the endpoint is specific logic of the user story. The like a endpoint is a user story you can call simply. So like you are not exposing the entire code base. You are actually exposing the entire code single endpoint. And that endpoint we call the API. When this API is deploy on the development environment, we call that dev URL. When you deploy on the staging, we call the staging URL. When you deploy in the production, we call the production URL. That's how it works. The last 10 minutes, this is how exactly how details you have to know. If you try another way, well, you did not learn the fundamental. Means you are not technical yet. The last 10 minutes, you have to know the details, how this works. Even though I exposed very high level, I didn't even tell the details yet, okay? I just give you the very fundamental, how you know all the to start your conversation with anybody, how this works, again. So what the summary? Backend is another component, database is another component, frontend is another component. And the frontend in general, we call the client. Client can be the frontend, mobile app, desktop app, or the devices. Right? At the backend is where the business logic is written. Business logic can be written with the JavaScript, Python, Java, Golang, PHP, many other languages, right? Frontend can be written very limited, HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript. Okay, so frontend is controlled mostly JavaScript. Backend can be written by any of the programming language. You see what is the story here? There is some good story here. So when you write the backend with so many programming language, if there is no endpoint, then you cannot actually interchange the application. Very important this part. You can build an application backend with 8 or 10 programming language, no problem. They will not work if you do not expose through the endpoint. Why? Well, the user management is the Python, but there is no endpoint exposed. The product is actually JavaScript. There is no endpoint exposed. The review with the Golang, well, it's not going to work. The product inventory with the Java is not going to work because you're not exposing the endpoint. Exposing the endpoint, you are introducing interoperability or interconnectivity, because endpoint is only just simple payload. It's a JSON or XML. You will see, don't worry about it. When you see, it's just easy, right? But if you don't understand any of this, it's like it's a big mystery, okay? It's a big mystery if you don't understand all the details. So API is the endpoint, and the backend is normally write the business logic. Backend logic can be written by the different programming language as mentioned. And endpoint expose the API. This API can be interchangeable. Why? Because you can develop an application using the single programming language, or you can develop an application with the many programming language. Don't ask me why you do this. That's a different story. But your interchangeability comes when you exposing through the API, because the API knows only two data format. Focus on it. Data format means like the Word document, text, pictures, PDF, right? It's all called the format, means the extension. PDF.pdf, Word.doc, Excel.excel, text.txt. It's a really data format. So in the web, right, or in the system-to-system communication, is actually the integration. System-to-system communication, data format is widely 2 or 3. Okay, the very fundamental was XML, okay, extended markup language, and the second is widely popular in the industry, JSON. But nowadays another more is coming, okay, but the two is widely used. Nowadays YAML is coming, the GraphQL is, so many things are coming, but I don't know all of this. To be fair and square. But two most widely data exchange happening between the devices. Focus, why I said the devices now. I'm going to the different direction now. It's XML or the JSON, okay? And in the web, you see everything is working. It's a 99 point REST API. You'll be learning more details, REST API, okay? You will learn, and the data format is .json. Of course, XML works too. And there is a, now you can say there is a 3 type of the communication happen in the web or in the company network. One is the SOAP, one is the REST, and the nowadays one is being popular, where is the GraphQL. Okay, SOAP works very well with the company's network. Means the it doesn't have to be web. It works the other protocol. I'm not going to touch that. I'm sorry, I cannot go. But in the web universe, the REST is driving the whole industry. Means you just write the business logic and expose through the REST API. Okay, and the another is coming because the REST has some problem. RESTful API has some problem. The GraphQL is coming to the pictures. Again, this is not our goal to learn all the details from this, because our goal is just to learn the testing. So what do we learn? We learn the system-to-system connectivity happen, data exchange happen through the RESTful API. So my device is accessing www.schoolhub.ai. It's my device. It's my internet, my Comcast. And the School Hub is actually the New York data center, right? New York, a building, a computer is there. So my device to the School Hub device. So two devices communicating, number one. While communicating what? Communicating, click the sign in. So I got the endpoint. Okay, I got the endpoint. Now what? Now third is, I type my username, I type my password. So then I click the sign in. And then now this data actually going from Michigan to all the way New York data center. And this actually entire things happen through the RESTful API. But how many things happen? Device to device communication happen over the internet, over the network, you can call whatever. But we access the endpoint, which is the sign in, but it's not done yet. I actually send the data as well, my username, my password. In the same endpoint, I pass the username and the password. And then I click. Now, actually, it went to where? Actually, it went to the web server. It went to the web server, and web server told the backend, hey, you got a request from Shiblu. This guy is actually giving this information, his username, password. And the business, the API says, yeah, okay. Just looking for the database. Is Shiblu is the right person? Oh yeah, Shiblu is the right user. Well, yeah, allow him to log in. That's exactly communication. So the backend talked to the database, making sure everything is good, and the backend told the web server, yeah, allow him to, and the web server told the front end, yeah, let this guy to work. Means let this guy to sign in. The entire things happen even in millisecond or 2-3 seconds. We'll be learning this. Okay, from the browser to all the way communication happen. That's how the web works. So system to two device or more than two device when they're interchanging the data, right? Either receiving the data or the sending the data, right? And it is called the RESTful API. Simple.